You're here in just a minute. You'll get to walk around and do what you were doing just a second ago, but we do have a brief overview first. I want to thank all of you guys for being here. We are very proud to be at this moment. I was telling the group earlier that, was it February we talked to you? Last year, this year in February, Hillary and I went to talk to the mayor. We had on the quality of life plan, one of the big goals is redevelopment of Montgomery Road, and to make the city more walking and pedestrian friendly. And so we said, gosh, we met with Joy from the county, and she said, you should go for a mini planning grant. So we met with the mayor, and it was neat because he said, well, why wouldn't I want to do that? So that was last year, and we have been working ever since then. We've been interviewing people. We've been studying all the things that are currently on Montgomery Road and seeing what we could do to change those and make it more of the street that we want to represent the city that we love. So we're going to talk more about that tonight. Before we get started, I want to introduce our steering committee. I'm going to use my paper this time so I don't make any mistakes about people's jobs, which is here somewhere. First of all, over here we have Ben Eilerman, who is a project manager for Over the Rhine Housing Association. Ben. David Thompson, who is the Vice President of Affordable Housing for the Model Group. Ty Belize, who is the owner of AJ's Cheesesteak. Tim Kling, who is the Director of Real Estate for UDF. Catherine Fitzgerald, who is the Senior Director for Economic Development for HCDC, and also contracting with Norwood to do economic development, which is wonderful. And Tom Perry, who is the Executive Assistant to the Mayor. He is also working on economic development. Back in the corner over here, we have Hillary Cannon, who works for the Mercantile Library. She's the Vice President of Norwood Together. And up here we have Sarah Allen, who is a Director for Economic Development for the Center for Great Neighborhoods in Covington, Kentucky. And then did I miss anyone? Okay, so from the county, we have Steve Johns, and his official title is the Planning Services Administrator for the Hamilton County Planning Department, and he oversees a lot of these. We have been very lucky to have him as our personal planner for this project, which has been wonderful. And three people who are not here tonight are Emma Shirey, who is an associate for CBI, Liz Bloom, who is the Executive Director for CBI, that's the Community Building Institute at Xavier University, and also Sean Comer, who is the Director of Government Relations for Xavier University, and they have been restricted by the university to not be in groups more than 10, so they could not be here tonight. They wanted me to convey to you that they are very supportive of this project, very supportive of Norwood, and really just are very sad that they could not be here with us. So when you look at the Xavier property, I wish they were here to tell you all about it, but someone else will be doing a really good job representing them. So before we get started, also you know that we had to limit the population, the size of the group of people who could be here because of COVID. So we're glad you guys braved it and came out, and we'll get to see what's going on. We're pretty excited about it. So I want to introduce again Tom Perry, who's the Executive Assistant to the Mayor. He's been working on economic development in the city, and he's currently working on his master's in public administration at NKU, and he hopes to be finished next May. And then Catherine, the two of them are going to talk to you a little bit about what they're doing with the city. We'll hear a little bit from Mayor Snyder, and then we'll get going. So, Tom and Catherine.
So, hello again. I'm Tom Perry, Executive Assistant to the Mayor. So again, one of the things that Catherine and I started to see as we were meeting with businesses and meeting and just trying to see where the energy was in Norwood was we went up close to City Hall, really. We see Anna's, which is being turned into a new restaurant. We see the old Bluebird, which is being returned into a new restaurant. And then the Fidelity building, which Pete Ventura has put a lot of money and effort into, that looks really, really nice. So we started to see what we thought was a critical mass, kind of. We started to see some really positive energy in that area. Basically, from City Hall up until Victory Park is where we see a lot of that energy. So kind of building off of that and building off the plan, we found some CDBG money and we applied for it for Heritage Park, which, if you don't know what Heritage Park is, it's the little pocket park in between City Hall and the little strip there along Montgomery Road where Anna's is and the salon there. So our hope with that money, it's $100,000 in CDBG money. What we're trying to get is more seating, create a more walkable, kind of nice outdoor environment in that little park area.
Everyone, I'm Catherine Fitzgerald with HCDC. We're a private nonprofit actually located in Norwood on Mentor Avenue. We do small business lending. We have a business incubator with about 50 tenants. And then we also have an economic development office. We actually contract with Hamilton County, so we are their economic development office. And then, as Mary C. said, some communities that want a little bit deeper dive contract with us for economic development services. So I started in that capacity in August here in Norwood. I'm very happy to be here, working with larger projects, startups, and everything in between here in Norwood. Very happy to serve on the steering committee, and I'm also a resource for business needs here in Norwood. So please reach out to Tom or anyone else, and they know where to reach me. So welcome.
Snyder, who's going to tell you a little bit about his vision for Norwood.
Hi, thanks everyone. I'll tell you, I spoke just a half an hour ago about some of these same things, but I'll tell you, when I took over as mayor, one of the first things that happened was everybody was inundated with ideas and suggestions, and there were just so many different good ideas that came, and we jotted some of those down, and Tom and myself and John Murphy, the safety service director, started working on a lot of those ideas, and then we got our new our new superintendent of public works on, and he has really just been going gangbusters to get things done. A lot of those ideas that came about, we've been putting into place. But one of the things that jumped out at me right away was we need a plan from A to B. We need to really know where we're trying to go and put something together, put it on paper to give us what we're trying to do. And that's when, quite frankly, when they came to me and said, we're looking at this mini planning grant, does the city, heck yeah, sure we do. Why not? Let's get this thing going. So I really have to thank the steering committee and Steve and the whole group for putting this together and working through this and putting these presentations on, because this is what we need as a city. Your voice is heard and improvements made and a plan put in place so that we can carry those out. So I really just want to say thank you to all of you and to all the community members that have been involved in this, business leaders and others that have put in their 2 cents to make sure that this is what we want as a community. And I think it's a great plan, and I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you giving me a minute to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I'll turn it over to Steve. He'll give you like an outline.
Good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you again for coming. I wanted to outline how this is going to work. You kind of saw it as you guys were trickling in, I think, that we're doing this brief overview. And then we gave you some tools back there. You saw the one-page handout that tries to summarize what we've got in a 30 or 40-page document right now. Some of the big themes and a little map of the area. We also gave you some sticky notes and some sticky dots. So those are for you to weigh in on the draft plan. So green dots mean you like something you see on the boards or the maps. Orange dots you're maybe not so sure about. And then sticky notes, if you've got a question or comment, go ahead and put them on our maps and boards. Great. So what is this plan about? As you see on your sheet, there's about 5 real theme areas to this plan. Tom did a great job covering the invest in areas with existing momentum. As he noted, that area from City Hall down to Victory Park seems to have a lot going on for it right now, so we want to build on that and make it even better. There's some other secondary areas that also have some good energy. Blossom Way looks good. Xavier wants to do some things near Ivanhoe and Hudson. UDF has some investments up near Williams. The library eventually will be doing some work on their facility. So we want to also acknowledge that there's some secondary next places that we look to do investment. Improve basic infrastructure. I was telling the story to the first group that there'd be some times I might not want to drive through Norwood because I wanted to save my suspension because there's potholes and the roads have seen better times. Well, we know that that's the case on Montgomery Road, particularly in the southern section where there hasn't been a lot of new development for some time. I think there's those little bus ruts that you get where the bus has stopped and moved the pavement. So definitely improve basic infrastructure is something we want to look at. The idea of making Montgomery Road more of a connector than a divider. Right now in places, particularly in the northern section of the corridor, it's so wide, there's so many cars, it's just hard to get across. So we want to look at ways to make those east-west pedestrian connections through some improvements. And then experiment and activate. I really like this one. This is new to planners, is to test out things, to use something called tactical urbanism, where you don't have to make a big capital investment to see how something's going to work. Try it out. Put a temporary solution in there, temporary barriers or something like that. Activate the space, and then see what happens from there. And then create a strategic framework for development. We've divided the corridor into about 8 sections, knowing that there's some unique aspects to the corridor, and we don't want something that just goes on and on and on for a mile and a half. All right, so Tom talked a lot about this one. Again, we know that Fidelity Building is a great new addition to Norwood and the Montgomery Road corridor. There's a backhoe doing some work in Victory Park now to take out that pool and open up that space. So that's going to have a new fresh face too. So this is the kind of thing that we're talking about, both public and private investment in this area to just keep the ball rolling. And then I mentioned some of those other places where there's possible momentum on a secondary level. Here's a little slice of the infrastructure that we need to improve. I'm sure Clint will be on this tomorrow probably, but painting these poles, making sure that tree wells actually get trees replaced where it makes sense, back to that pavement eventually, trying to fix that, and the curbs. Little things like signs we thought would be a big help. Paint, signs, crosswalks. We can do a lot of that really quickly. And here's a little example from a different jurisdiction. Again, I don't like that it doesn't have a sidewalk here, but you see a very nicely maintained signal pole. You've got a nice, very large sign that you can see. This one is actually backlit, so you can see it at night too. And then somewhere down the line, we'd like to get to these planted medians to break up the corridor a bit. So those pedestrian crossings, here's near Mills Avenue. And, that looks like a lot of asphalt to get across. So we're thinking of ways to make that easier by doing perhaps bump outs or pedestrian refuges in the middle, where right now we see the yellow striped area. And looking at places like Sherman, Williams, Ivanhoe and Hudson, Wasson Way, all those ones that I mentioned earlier. Here's some examples of what those bump outs might look like from a different jurisdiction. So it's a way where you can protect some of the on-street parking and also narrow the amount of pavement that someone would have to cross. This one also has shows a good different treatment for crosswalks, a zebra treatment that also defines a crosswalk a little bit better. This is the Lafayette intersection with Montgomery Road. And it feels like one of those underutilized spaces. We could do a lot more here. There's a lot of asphalt. It's really a long way to get across. If you are a pedestrian or you have to walk kind of around Cameron and all the way around to get across this intersection. This is where the railroad used to go through too. So there's an old right-of-way there right behind some of the buildings at front on Montgomery Road. That could be utilized better. We think the combination of those two could turn into one of these tactical urbanism ideas. So here's an overhead view of that same intersection with this little intervention put into it where we would close off Lafayette from getting to Montgomery, do some maybe chalk or street painting, temporary street painting, activate the space with food trucks. I mean, we're going to want to get together eventually. I know after this COVID thing is over, we're going to gather again and want to be at something like this that has energy and we can see all our friends and family. And here's probably very challenging to see back in the back, but I can leave the slide back on. It's the 8 different sections. So starting from the southern end of the corridor, it's Xavier University, kind of a town and gown section, all up to Clenny. And then there's a bit of a transition between Xavier and the UDF campus. So the UDF campus would be the next section we'd look at. They have some property holdings there and some ideas for making that a little more of a unified place. Then we saw by Carpenter Flats, the new apartment building, on Montgomery Road, that's a little bit of a multifamily area, that there's several multifamily buildings right there. And so for that block, we're calling that out as a nice break from all the commercial areas. Get into another transition area up through the Lafayette intersection, up to Monroe, where then you get to Surrey Square and the shopping area, kind of the downtown section of Norwood. Once you get north of Sherman, you're in the government and jobs section, we're calling it. And then as you get to the Norwood lateral, it's a bit more auto-oriented up that way, which is no surprise. You see that Frisch's, and it's got right in the middle of a big parking lot. And it probably might make sense for that kind of area, but it's not something we want to see along the entire corridor. And how are we going to get this done? Well, we got a bunch of partners. Many of them are in the room tonight. And many of them I've mentioned. Some that I have not are Metro. They own some of that right of way on the rail line that we could work with. They've got 3 bus lines that go through town. HDDC we heard about. Tim Kling from UDF is here. CDBG dollars from planning. The public library we interviewed, and they're excited about the plan. And you can't forget ODOT, who is starting to look at safety grants and other ways to help make this all a reality. And then where do we go from here? So we'll get all this input from tonight, and hopefully some more from online, and look at that, refine our recommendations, come up with a final draft plan that we can then take to the Planning Commission, and then probably get some more feedback. We'll do a little more refining, then on to the Council Economic Development Committee, and hopefully by then we've talked to almost everyone and have made all the right changes, and be able to take it right to Council for adoption and then implementation. So we've got a plan. We've got a plan to get to implementation. We're excited that you're interested in what we're up to and do want to hear from you. So with that, we'll spread out. How this is going to work is the maps start with Xavier down at this end, kind of work around all the way back up to the Norwood lateral. And we've got members of the steering committee there to help walk you through some of our proposed changes. In the way back, we have some short-term changes that are more policy-oriented, so if you want to check those out. And then here we have some more midterm recommendations and also some zoning recommendations, if you want to comment on those. And again, you go ahead, liberally use your sticky dots and sticky notes. Sound like a plan? Let's do it.